So here we have a DEC VT320. DEC stands for the Digital Equipment Corporation, and they were a big manufacturer of dumb terminals as they are known today. Dumb because it doesn't have any sort of computing power in it whatsoever, other than a small microprocessor that runs this little small setup program which tests the hardware and then um, allows you to connect to an upstream computer that actually provides all of the computing resources. So this VT320 came from eBay. It's in mostly good condition. It seems to be all original. Doesn't seem to have any major defects. The CRT seems to be slightly skew, but otherwise it's in perfect working order. Looks like it was manufactured in 1989. It's not super ancient, but it's still fairly usable. So, modern devices, many network devices have console ports that we connect to via terminal emulators, pieces of software that run on our computers, which emulate these old, oftentimes the original VT100 emulation mode is what they run in. So they support the basic control sequences and cursor movements and things like that. This VT320 supports the VT300 control set, which is expands a bit and gives some more features and has some graphics options. But basically, I'm just trying to use it in regular old VT100 mode, or at least get it to do something. So, but booting it up, it sits here at this firmware and setup screen until you hit a key on the keyboard. Which, if I hit something, we just get a blinking cursor. And if you hit the F3 key, you can get into a built-in menu to set up the serial port parameters, change some other things with if you're hooking up to a modem versus straight to a serial console on a computer, etc. But we have everything set to the defaults and don't really need to change anything here. Go to exit and hit enter. We get back to our blinking cursor. But yeah, so if you hook this thing up to a computer, which it currently is, but the computer isn't doing anything with that serial port. I actually have this thing hooked up to an Avicent Cyclades 6008 console server, which is meant for a totally different purpose. These days, computers with serial ports are the exception rather than the rule, like they were back in this time. And a lot of network devices and even servers have serial ports, which you can hook up to their serial consoles. But if you want to hook up to a bunch of them, you would need something like this console server, which aggregates a bunch of serial ports so that you can connect to it via IP, either remotely for out-of-band management or locally with a serial console, just so that you don't have to keep moving console ports around from device to device. Oh, looks like my Avicent Cyclades logged me out. It has a pretty aggressive logout. It seems to print to all of the serial ports its kernel messages. Maybe it's just because I've been fucking with it, but not entirely sure. So now that I've logged back in, it wasn't actually doing anything with the serial port at the time. Don't know why it actually wrote a message to it, but yeah. Anyway, so if I send the escape sequence to reset the terminal to the serial port just with the echo command, we'll get back to our just blinking cursor there. But this Avicent Cyclades, yeah, they give you the root password. You can log in. It's PowerPC based, just running a little small, simple Linux distro. And they seem to have, it's got BusyBox and a few other useful things, so it's not a terrible environment to be in. And of course, it's got a Getty so that it can run a login prompt on the built-in console port that you're meant to use to administer this device. But we can use it to actually run a login prompt on any of the other serial ports that are meant for downstream devices. So I have it over here set to run at 9600 baud, which is what the terminal is actually set to. and run on the TTY S1, which is where I'm plugged in with my homemade cable. That's pretty sketchy, but no, I'll go ahead and run that, and you'll see on the terminal there a login prompt. So the Getty will read the contents of Etsy issue and print it across the serial connection, and then it hosts a login prompt, which then once we type in a username, in this case root, it calls the login program, which requests the password. It's not echoed to the screen using those fancy escape sequences. And once I log in, I'm at a familiar Linux bash prompt. And from here I can run any of the commands available on that Avicent Cyclades, or I can use Telnet, lovely provided by BusyBox, to connect somewhere else. So if I connect to, there we go, this BBS I found online, it recognizes it's set up to handle most of the terminal things. You can see some of the text is bold, and it does some other things. So let me sign in as a new user. And then this is like a thing to detect what terminal mode you're running in. So it asks you to hit the backspace key just to see what character is sent. And then it's asking if it supports IBM Extended, which I definitely do not. And then it's asking for a name. Come type in Garblygook and a real name, Garfield Gook. Garblygook is fine. Topeka, Kansas. And I am a female, born on March 10th, 1975. Nope, 20, how about that? Born in 1934. Asking for an email address. Do I have to specify one? I do. gar@field.com. Do not want to forward mail. No. Yeah, that's all correct. And look at that fancy ASCII art BBS that we have pulled up here. It's actually, I was playing around with it earlier. It's got some pretty fancy emulation of older BBSs, and seems to be somewhat in use. But this is just walking us through some of the commands that you can use, and yeah, there's 5 people online. Actually, now 5 users total, with 1 online today. I think that was me from earlier. No, it's pretty fancy. And here I can run the different command shells. But yeah, I will go ahead and just quit. It gives me a password, which is handily recorded on video. We answer yes, new password. Also echoed to the screen, fancy. That one's not. Interesting. Change password signature, default element protocol, all this fancy stuff for old computers. I think most of this was more relevant when you were actually connecting with a modem. I don't know if Z modem is supported over Telnet or not. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. But no, I'm just going to go ahead and quit. Oh, it wants me to include some information. I'm just going to completely quit Telnet and close that connection. But yeah, this is how people used to communicate back in the day. Just hook this thing up to a modem, dial a BBS, interact with a bulletin board system, post messages, yeah, send email, tie up that precious phone line for some good old fixed width fun. Anyway, I'll be probably creating a few more videos about this as I dig into it, but this is just a simple test I got it running this morning, so yeah, enjoy.